The hedge along the east drive needs trimming. See to it before the guests arrive. The man in the bespoke linen suit didn't even look at me as he issued the order, mistaking my worn khakis and work shirt for staff uniform. His wife, Celeste Vanderlaan, elegant and bored, fanned herself beside their low-slung Italian sports car, its tires leaving deep gouges in the gravel I'd just raked smooth. My 10-year-old son, Regan, who I'd brought to show the estate I'd spent years restoring with my father, froze, his small hand tightening in mine. What they didn't know, what the new owners of Willowmere had deliberately ignored, was that the 200-acre property had been in my family for 4 generations. The bank's foreclosure 5 years ago, after my father's sudden death, was a blur of grief and legal confusion. My signature, Eleanor Barrett, was on every original deed in the county archives. What they also didn't know was that their star investor, the tech mogul they'd brought in to fund the Willowmere Luxury Eco-Village, was an old college friend of mine. And he thought I was dead. The summer solstice soiree was the Vanderlaans' grand unveiling. They'd bought the estate for a song, poured millions into cosmetic restorations, and were now hosting influencers and venture capitalists. They'd never responded to my letters. They'd returned my boxes of historical photos unopened. "I'm not on the grounds crew," I said, my voice calm but carrying over the chirping of the finches in the ancient white oak, the one where my father had carved our initials, now plastered over. Felix Vanderlaan finally glanced over, his gaze dismissive. "Then what is your purpose here? This is a private, ticketed event." "I'm aware. My great-grandfather planted these willow trees from cuttings he brought from Scotland in 1898. Celeste let out a short, tinkling laugh. "How charmingly rustic. Are you a local historian? The charity preview tour was at 2. You've missed it." She eyed my simple clothes and Regan's scuffed sneakers. Before I could respond, the head of their event staff, Maria, my childhood friend, hurried over, her face ashen. "Mr. Vanderlaan, please, this is Eli, Eleanor Barrett." The name meant nothing to him, but Maria's terror did. "Miss Barrett, her family owned Willowmere for a very long time." Felix's expression shifted from annoyance to patronizing amusement. "Ah, the previous owner's daughter, I see. The bank sale was quite legal, I assure you. Maria, perhaps you could show them to the historical display tent." He waved a hand, already turning away. Regan's voice, small but clear, cut through the humid air. "But Mom, this is our home. That's Grandpa's tree." Celeste's polished smile vanished. Felix stopped mid-turn. His eyes darted from my calloused hands to Regan's defiant face, to Maria's pleading look. "The bank sold it," Felix repeated, a new, sharp edge in his voice. "They did," I agreed evenly, "but selling a house doesn't erase its story, or its legal covenants." I let the word hang. The ironclad conservation covenants my grandfather had placed on the North Meadow and the old-growth forest, covenants that the glossy brochure had omitted, covenants that nullified their plans for subdivision. "We've seen enough, Regan," I said, guiding him away. As we walked, I heard Felix's low, furious whisper to Maria. "I want every document on this property in my study in 30 minutes, and find out who that really is." Back in our rented cottage, the air thick with the scent of jasmine that grew wild here, I didn't go for the deed box immediately. Instead, I pulled out my old laptop and opened a buried email account. I typed a name I hadn't spoken in 15 years. Drake Petra. Drake, my college boyfriend, the brilliant, quiet computer science major. We'd parted amicably, he to Silicon Valley, I back to my family land. The last I'd heard, he'd founded Ether Innovations. According to the soiree brochure, now crumpled in my hand, Drake Petra, CEO of Ether, was the lead investor in the Willowmere Eco Village. His photo, older, more assured, smiled from the brochure. A man who believed in sustainable futures. He was the financial engine behind the desecration of my past. An idea, dangerous and clear, formed. I wrote a short, precise email to his public corporate address. Subject, Willowmere and the Barrett Covenant. Drake, I doubt you remember the girl who showed you how to identify chanterelle mushrooms in the North Meadow of Willowmere. The meadow you're now funding to bulldoze. The legal covenants forbidding it are attached. The family you were told was gone is not. We need to talk. Eleanor. Eli. I hit send. Then I opened the fireproof box. Beyond the deeds in my grandfather's leather-bound forestry journals, I found the object I needed. A small, faded velvet pouch. Inside was my great-grandmother's pendant, a simple silver disc engraved with the Barrett family crest, an oak tree with roots and branches intertwined. It was the proof of lineage no notary could dispute. My phone rang. A blocked number. Miss Barrett. It was Felix Vanderlaan. His voice was strained, all pretense of civility gone. Your documents are impressive. A creative interpretation. We'd like to discuss a settlement, a quiet one, a one-time payment for you to sign a release on these so-called covenants. They're not so-called, Mr. Vanderlaan. They're binding, and I'm not interested in a payoff. I'm interested in the truth. The truth, he hissed, is that you're a nuisance standing in the way of progress in a $30 million investment. My partner, Mr. Petter, does not take kindly to obstacles. Then it's a good thing I just emailed him, I said softly, and hung up. 20 minutes later, as I was explaining to Reagan that we might have to fight a big battle to protect the land, my laptop chimed. A reply from Drake Petter, not from his corporate address, but from a personal Gmail account I remembered. Eli. My God, they told me the family had dissolved. The last heir passed. I only invested because Felix claimed it was a restoration, a tribute. The covenants were never disclosed. I am on a plane. I will be there in 4 hours. Do not sign anything. Do not agree to meet them alone. I am so sorry. Drake. My breath caught. The enemy's financier was flying in as an ally? 3 minutes after that, there was a knock on my cottage door. It wasn't Felix. It was Celeste Vanderlaan, alone. Her elegance was replaced by a frantic energy. She held a large manila envelope. May I come in? She asked, her eyes darting past me into the humble living room. I nodded, wary. She didn't sit. My husband is a fool and a liar, but I am not a fool. I am trapped. She thrust the envelope at me. He forged my signature on the investor agreement with Petter. He's leveraged everything, my family money, this estate against this project. If it fails, we are not just bankrupt, there are clauses, penalties from people you don't want to know. I opened the envelope. Inside were financial records, a copy of the forged signature page, and damning internal emails between Felix and the county zoning commissioner, hinting at bribes to fast-track permits. Why give this to me? I asked. Because you have the covenants, and because she looked out the window at the land, a genuine tremor in her voice. I found your mother's rose garden last week, the one he paved over for a helipad. I found one rose bush still alive under the tarp. I've been watering it in secret. She met my eyes. I don't want to be the villain in this story anymore. I now had two unlikely allies, a remorseful tech billionaire and a desperate, complicit wife, and I had the evidence to burn it all down. The meeting wasn't in a boardroom, but in my grandfather's old study at Willowmere, now a sterile client lounge. Drake Petter stood by the fireplace, his presence transforming the room. He looked at me, a storm of emotions in his eyes: regret, recognition, resolve. Felix was sweating, his arrogance shattered. "Drake, this is a misunderstanding," Felix began. "The only misunderstanding," Drake interrupted, his voice quiet but absolute, "was my trust in you. Aether is withdrawing all funding effective immediately. We will be pursuing legal action for fraudulent representation." Felix paled. "You can't. The contracts are void due to material non-disclosure," Drake said, nodding to me. "The covenants Ms. Barrett holds are the material." I placed the velvet pouch on the desk, spilling out the silver pendant. Next to it, I laid Celeste's envelope. "And this," I said, my eyes locked on Felix, "is evidence of fraud, forgery, and likely bribery. The county commissioner is already being investigated." Felix crumpled into a chair. Celeste stood silently by the door, a silent sentinel. Drake turned to me. "Aether would like to propose a new investment, Eli. Not in an eco-village, but in a genuine conservation trust. We fund the full, historically accurate restoration of the main house as a museum and archive. The protected lands remain forever wild. You and Reagan are the head trustees, the Barrett Petter Legacy Trust." The room spun. It wasn't about getting the house back. It was about securing its soul forever. The first autumn frost silvered the North Meadow. Reagan and I walked the trail with Drake, who now visited monthly. The Barrett Petter Conservation Trust was legally established. Felix, facing multiple investigations, had fled the country. Celeste, granted immunity for her cooperation, had moved to a small apartment in town and volunteered at the Historical Society. We stopped at the Great Oak. My father's carving, carefully restored by a preservationist, was visible again. EB plus LB, forever rooted. Drake pointed to a fresh, tiny carving beside it, of a stylized circuit board entwined with an oak leaf. "Reagan's edition," he said, smiling. "He said it's for the new roots," I explained, my throat tight. From the porch of the main house, now empty, awaiting its new life as a museum, Celeste waved. She was holding a watering can, heading not to the vanished rose garden, but to a new sapling we'd planted together, a young willow from a cutting of the original. Reagan squeezed my hand. "It's coming back, Mom." I looked at the land, at the man from my past helping secure its future, at the woman who chose to help rather than hinder, and at my son, who would never have to say, "This was my home," again. "It never left, sweetheart," I whispered, the wind carrying the promise through the branches. "We just had to help it remember itself."